The church bells tolled, but the bride was nowhere to be found. Riley stood at the edge of the garden, her boots sinking into the dewy grass, staring at the empty altar where Elise was supposed to say, "I do." 5 women, all ex-lovers, lingered in the crowd, their presence a silent storm brewing under the California sun. Riley's heart pounded as she scanned the faces around her. She hadn't seen Elise in 3 years, not since their breakup left her shattered, piecing herself back together in the quiet of her San Francisco apartment. Yet here she was, invited to Elise's wedding, a cruel twist of fate that dragged her back into a love she'd tried to bury. The invitation had arrived in a cream envelope, Elise's looping handwriting promising a day of celebration. Riley hadn't expected to see them, the other exes, each a chapter of Elise's chaotic, magnetic life. The venue, a sprawling vineyard in Napa Valley, was draped in white roses and fairy lights, a picture of romance that felt like a mockery now. Guests whispered, their eyes darting toward the 5 women who stood out like misfit puzzle pieces. Riley caught the gaze of Maya, a 25-year-old artist with a streak of blue in her hair, who dated Elise briefly but intensely 2 years ago. Maya's smirk held a knowing edge as if she, too, sensed the absurdity of their shared predicament. Across the lawn, Tessa, 32, a corporate lawyer with sharp cheekbones and a tailored blazer, clutched a glass of champagne too tightly. Her history with Elise was a stormy 6 months in college, a fling that ended in bitter silence. Nearby, Lena, 29, a soft-spoken librarian with round glasses, fidgeted with her bracelet, her gentle demeanor hiding the heartbreak Elise had left her with 4 years ago. And then there was Sam, 27, a tattooed bartender with a leather jacket, who'd been Elise's rebound after Riley, a reckless, passionate affair that burned out fast. Why had Elise invited them all? Riley's mind raced, her fingers tracing the edge of the invitation tucked in her pocket. The words, "You're still part of my story," were scrawled on the back, a message that felt both tender and manipulative. The officiant cleared his throat, announcing a delay, and the crowd's murmurs grew louder. Riley's gut twisted. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She slipped away from the guests, her boots crunching on the gravel path toward the bridal suite. The door was ajar, and inside, the room was a mess. A white dress crumpled on the floor, a bouquet of lilies discarded on a chair, and a note pinned to the mirror. Riley's breath caught as she read it. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Elise." Her heart sank, but a flicker of hope sparked too. Elise was gone, but she'd left chaos in her wake, pulling Riley and the others into a tangled web of past promises and unspoken truths. Riley turned, sensing movement behind her. Maya stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with the same question Riley had. What the hell is going on? The two exchanged a glance, a silent agreement to find answers. They stepped back into the garden, where Tessa, Lena, and Sam were already converging, drawn by the same instinct. 5 ex-girlfriends, each carrying a piece of Elise's heart, now faced a mystery. Why had Elise invited them to a wedding that would never happen? And where was she now? Riley's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old oak tree. Midnight." Her pulse raced. Elise was still here, somewhere, pulling strings. The vineyard stretched out before them, a labyrinth of vines and secrets. Riley looked at the others, their faces a mix of anger, curiosity, and longing. This wasn't just a wedding gone wrong, it was a reckoning. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the vineyard. Riley felt the weight of her past with Elise pressing against her chest, but she also felt something new, resolve. She wasn't here to win Elise back. She was here to understand why her heart still ached for a woman who'd broken it, and why 4 others felt the same. As the guests dispersed, confused and disappointed, the 5 women lingered, bound by a shared history and a missing bride. The night was young, and the truth was out there, hidden in the rows of grapes and the whispers of the wind. Riley took a step forward, her boots steady on the earth. "Let's find her," she said, her voice low but firm. The others nodded, their differences fading in the face of a common goal. The vineyard was vast, but Elise's pull was stronger, drawing them into a story none of them could escape. The oak tree loomed in the distance, a silent sentinel waiting for midnight. Riley's heart beat faster, not just for Elise, but for the answers that might finally set her free. The vineyard was cloaked in darkness, the fairy lights now dim flickers against the night sky. Riley led the way, her flashlight cutting through the shadows as the 5 women moved toward the old oak tree. The air was thick with tension, each step a reminder of the love and pain Elise had left in their lives. Maya walked beside Riley, her sneakers scuffing the dirt. "You think she's actually out here?" she asked, her voice sharp with skepticism. "Or is this another one of her games?" Riley didn't answer, her jaw tight. She wanted to believe Elise had a reason for this chaos, but doubt gnawed at her. Tessa, trailing behind, checked her watch. "Midnight's in 10 minutes. If she's not there, I'm done." Her tone was clipped, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hope. Lena, quiet as always, clutched a small notebook, her fingers trembling. Sam, bringing up the rear, lit a cigarette, the glow illuminating her tense expression. "Elise always had a flair for the dramatic," she muttered, exhaling smoke. The oak tree stood alone in a clearing, its gnarled branches reaching into the sky like a warning. Riley's flashlight swept over the trunk, revealing a carved heart with initials, E and R. Her breath hitched. That was their mark, from a summer night years ago when Elise had promised forever. The memory stung, but Riley pushed it down. This wasn't about nostalgia, it was about answers. A rustle in the vines made them freeze. "Elise?" Lena called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. No response. Riley stepped forward, her heart pounding, and found a small wooden box tucked at the base of the tree. Inside were 5 envelopes, each labeled with one of their names. Riley's fingers shook as she opened hers, revealing a handwritten note. "You deserve the truth. Find me at the lighthouse by dawn. E." The others read their notes, their faces a mix of confusion and frustration. "The lighthouse," Tessa snapped. "That's an hour away on the coast." Maya scoffed, crumpling her note. "She's toying with us. Again." But Lena's eyes were wide, almost hopeful. "Maybe she's trying to fix things," she said, her voice small but earnest. Sam flicked her cigarette away. "Fix things? Elise doesn't fix, she breaks." Her words hung heavy, echoing Riley's own fears. But the note in her hand felt like a lifeline, a chance to finally understand why Elise had summoned them all. "We go," Riley said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "We find her, and we end this." The drive to the lighthouse was tense, the 5 women crammed into Tessa's SUV. The California coast unfolded outside, waves crashing under a moonless sky. Riley sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, memories of Elise flooding back, late-night drives, stolen kisses, promises that crumbled like sand. Each woman seemed lost in her own thoughts, their shared history with Elise a silent bond and a wedge between them. At the lighthouse, the air was cold and salty, the beam cutting through the fog. No sign of Elise. Instead, they found another box, this one containing a USB drive and a note. "Watch this. Then decide if you still want to find me." Tessa, ever practical, pulled out her laptop, and they huddled around the screen as the video played. Elise's face appeared, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice shaky. "If you're watching this, I didn't make it to the altar. I'm sorry. I invited you all because you're the pieces of me I can't let go." She paused, tears falling. "I've hurt you all, and I need to make it right. But first, you need to know the truth about me." The video cut to static, leaving them stunned. Riley's heart raced, part anger, part longing. What truth? And why this elaborate game? Maya slammed the laptop shut. "She's still pulling the strings, and we're just puppets." But Lena shook her head. "She's hurting. Can't you see that? The group fractured, arguments erupting. Tessa wanted to leave, calling it a waste of time. Sam sided with Maya, insisting Elise was manipulating them. But Riley felt a pull she couldn't ignore. "We keep going," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "She's out there, and we deserve answers." They agreed, reluctantly, to follow the next clue, a map on the USB drive pointing to a cabin in the redwoods. As they drove, the weight of Elise's words settled over them. The truth about her, what did it mean? And why did it feel like they were chasing a ghost? The redwood forest loomed like a cathedral, its towering trees swallowing the moonlight. The cabin was a small, weathered structure nestled in a clearing, its windows dark. Riley stepped out of the SUV, her boots sinking into the damp earth, her breath visible in the chilly air. The others followed, their faces tense, the weight of Elise's video lingering like a ghost. Lena clutched her notebook tighter, her eyes scanning the shadows. "This feels like a trap," she whispered, but she didn't turn back. Tessa checked her phone, no signal. "Great. We're in the middle of nowhere, chasing a woman who loves to disappear." Maya rolled her eyes, but her hands were stuffed in her pockets, betraying her nerves. Sam, lighting another cigarette, muttered, "Let's just get this over with." The cabin door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room. A single lantern flickered on a table, casting shadows across walls lined with old photographs. Riley's heart stopped as she recognized one, her and Elise, laughing on a pier, their arms wrapped around each other. Another showed Elise with Maya, painting side by side in a sunlit studio. Tessa, Lena, and Sam found their own memories pinned to the walls, a gallery of Elise's past loves. In the center of the room was a projector, already humming. Riley hit play and Elise's face filled the screen again. "If you're here, you're closer to understanding," she said, her voice softer now, almost broken. "I've been running from myself for years, from the truth about who I am. You each saw a piece of me, but never the whole. I'm not who you think I am." The video shifted to a montage, Elise as a teenager, struggling with her identity in a small town, Elise in therapy, her face etched with shame, Elise writing letters she never sent, confessing fears she couldn't voice. "I invited you all to the wedding because I wanted to face you, to face myself. But I'm not ready. Not yet." The screen went black and silence gripped the room. Riley's chest ached, a mix of anger and empathy. Elise wasn't just playing games, she was unraveling, and they were caught in her spiral. Maya broke the silence. "She's not here, is she? This is just another breadcrumb." Lena's voice trembled. "She's trying to tell us something. She's scared." Tessa scoffed, but her eyes were wet. "Scared? She's had years to figure herself out, and instead, she drags us into this mess." Sam stubbed out her cigarette on the table. "I don't care what she's going through. She doesn't get to keep hurting us." Riley picked up a letter from the table, addressed to all 5 of them. It read, "The truth is at the pier where we first met. Come at sunrise. I'll be there. E. The pier." For Riley, it was Santa Cruz, where she and Elise had shared their first kiss. But as the others murmured, she realized Elise had taken each of them there, weaving their stories into the same place. The drive to Santa Cruz was quiet, the tension between them palpable. Riley stared out the window, wrestling with memories of Elise's laughter, her touch, her promises. The others were grappling too, their shared history with Elise, both a bond and a wound. At the pier, the first light of dawn painted the sky pink, but Elise was absent again. Instead, they found a journal, its pages filled with Elise's handwriting. Riley read aloud, "I'm not the bride you thought I was. I'm not even sure who I am. But you, Riley, Maya, Tessa, Lena, Sam, you showed me love when I didn't deserve it. I'm sorry for the pain. I'm trying to be better." The words hit like a wave, raw and unguarded. Elise wasn't just running, she was searching for herself, and they were part of her journey. The journal pointed to a final destination, a rooftop in San Francisco, where Elise promised to meet them that night. As they drove, Riley felt the weight of the truth settling in. This wasn't about a wedding, it was about closure for Elise and for them. But would they find her, or just another piece of her puzzle? The San Francisco skyline glittered as the SUV climbed toward the rooftop. Riley's hands gripped the armrest, her mind racing. Elise's journal had peeled back layers of a woman she thought she knew, revealing a vulnerability that both softened and sharpened her anger. The others were silent, each lost in their own reckoning with Elise's words. The rooftop was an old art gallery, its glass walls reflecting the city lights. A single table stood in the center, holding 5 objects: a paintbrush for Maya, a book for Lena, a fountain pen for Tessa, a lighter for Sam, and a seashell for Riley. Each was a relic of their time with Elise, a tangible reminder of love and loss. A note read, "These are yours. Keep them or let them go. I'm here." But Elise wasn't there. The emptiness felt like a betrayal, yet Riley sensed they were close. Maya picked up the paintbrush, her fingers trembling. "She painted with me once, said it was the only time she felt free." Lena clutched the book, a worn copy of The Bell Jar. "She gave this to me when I was falling apart." Tessa stared at the pen, her jaw tight. "She wrote me a letter with this, promising things she couldn't keep." Sam flicked the lighter, a flame sparking in her eyes. "She used this to light my first cigarette after we fought. Said it was her way of saying sorry." Riley held the seashell, its smooth curve warm in her hand. She could almost hear Elise's laugh on that Santa Cruz beach, the moment she'd fallen in love. A faint sound drew their attention, a guitar strumming softly from the far end of the rooftop. They followed it, finding a small stage where a projector screen flickered to life. Elise's face appeared again, this time live, her eyes searching the camera. "I'm here," she said, her voice cracking. "I've been running from you, from myself, because I'm not the woman you loved. I'm trans. I've known for years, but couldn't face it." The words hit like a thunderclap. Riley's breath caught, her mind reeling. Elise continued, tears streaming. "I invited you all to the wedding to come out, to apologize, to let you go. But I couldn't face you. I'm still learning who I am." The feed cut off, leaving the rooftop silent except for the distant hum of the city. Lena was the first to speak, her voice soft. "She's been hiding this whole time, carrying that alone." Maya nodded, her anger softening. "It explains a lot why she always pulled away." Tessa's face was unreadable, but her hands shook. Sam cursed under her breath, but her eyes were wet. Riley felt a storm of emotions, shock, empathy, and a strange relief. Elise's chaos wasn't just manipulation, it was a cry for understanding. The note on the table had one last line: "Find me at the bridge. I need to see you one last time." The Golden Gate Bridge, another place tied to their shared past. They drove in silence, the weight of Elise's truth settling over them. At the bridge, the fog was thick, the city lights barely visible. Elise stood at the pedestrian walkway, her silhouette fragile against the red steel. She turned as they approached, her face pale but resolute. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I loved you all, but I couldn't love myself. I'm starting over as me. I hope you can forgive me." Riley stepped forward, her heart aching but clear. "We deserved better, Elise. But so do you." The others nodded, their anger giving way to something softer. They stood together, 5 women bound by a love that had shaped and scarred them, now facing a truth that set them free. The Golden Gate Bridge stretched into the fog, its cables humming in the wind. Elise stood before them, her black hair whipping across her face, her eyes raw with vulnerability. Riley felt the weight of years between them: love, betrayal, and now this fragile truth. The other 4 women stood close, their breaths visible in the cold, each grappling with Elise's revelation. "I didn't know how to tell you," Elise said, her voice trembling. "I thought the wedding would force me to be honest, but I couldn't go through with it. Not as the person I was pretending to be. She looked at each of them, her gaze lingering on Riley. You all loved me when I didn't know who I was. I owe you this truth. Maya stepped forward, her blue-streaked hair catching the bridge's dim lights. Why us? Why drag us through this? Her voice was sharp but laced with hurt. Elise swallowed hard. Because you're the only ones who ever saw me, even when I was hiding. I needed you to know who I am now. Lena clutched her notebook, tears streaming. I wish you'd told me sooner. I would have listened. Tessa's face softened, her usual sharpness dulled. You didn't have to run, Elise. We could have handled it. Sam, still holding the lighter, flicked it absently. You broke us, but I get it. You were breaking too. Riley's heart twisted. She wanted to be angry, to demand answers for the pain, but Elise's honesty disarmed her. What now? She asked, her voice steady despite the ache. Elise looked out at the fog, her hands gripping the railing. I'm starting hormone therapy. Moving to Portland. Trying to live as me, not as the bride or the girlfriend you knew. The silence was heavy, the city's hum a distant pulse. Riley thought of the seashell in her pocket, a relic of a love that felt both distant and alive. You could have trusted us, she said softly. Elise's eyes met hers, glistening. I know. That's why I'm here now. They talked for hours, the fog wrapping around them like a cocoon. Elise shared her journey, years of doubt, fear, and finally acceptance. The wedding was meant to be her grand gesture, a way to reconcile her past with her future, but fear had won. Inviting them all was her desperate attempt to bridge that gap. As dawn broke, the fog began to lift, revealing the bridge's red arches. Elise handed each of them a small letter, her final words to them. Riley's read, You taught me love is real, even when it hurts. Thank you for being my strength. The others tucked their letters away, their faces a mix of closure and lingering pain. Elise stepped back, her silhouette fading into the morning light. I hope you find your own peace, she said, her voice breaking. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the fog. Riley watched, her heart heavy but lighter than it had been in years. The 5 women stood together, strangers bound by a shared past. They didn't speak as they walked back to the SUV, but something had shifted. Elise's truth had unraveled their anger, leaving room for healing. Riley clutched the seashell, knowing it was time to let go, not of love, but of the pain it carried. The drive back to Napa Valley was quiet, the SUV filled with the weight of Elise's departure. Riley stared at the seashell in her palm, its smooth surface catching the morning light. The others were lost in their own thoughts, their letters from Elise tucked away like fragile secrets. The vineyard came into view, its rows of grapes serene in the dawn, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Maya broke the silence. So, what now? We just go home and pretend this didn't happen. Her voice was softer than usual, the edge dulled by exhaustion. Lena looked up from her notebook, her eyes red. I don't think we can pretend. She changed us. Tessa nodded, her fingers drumming on the steering wheel. She forced us to face her and ourselves. Sam lit a cigarette, cracking the window. I'm done chasing her ghosts. But I'm not done with this. She gestured vaguely at the group, a rare vulnerability in her eyes. Riley felt it too, a strange bond forming among them, forged in the fire of Elise's truth. They returned to the vineyard to gather their things, the abandoned wedding decorations now a bittersweet reminder. Riley wandered to the altar, where the white roses had begun to wilt. She thought of Elise's letter, its words echoing, You taught me love is real. For the first time, Riley felt the truth of it, not just for Elise, but for herself. The others joined her, their footsteps soft on the grass. We should do something, Lena said, her voice tentative. For us. To move forward. Maya raised an eyebrow. Like what? A group therapy session. But her tone was teasing, not cruel. Tessa smiled faintly. Maybe just talk. About what she meant to us. About who we are now. They sat in a circle on the lawn, the morning sun warming their faces. Riley spoke first, her voice steady. "Elise broke my heart, but she also showed me I could love that deeply. I've been scared to try again." Maya nodded, sharing her own story of painting with Elise, how it taught her to embrace her art without fear. Lena spoke of quiet nights reading together, finding solace in words. Tessa admitted Elise had pushed her to question her rigid life, and Sam confessed that Elise's fire had sparked her own. As they talked, the weight of the past began to lift. They weren't just Elise's exes, they were women with their own stories, their own strength. The vineyard, once a stage for Elise's drama, became a space for their healing. Before leaving, they decided to leave something behind. Each placed their keepsake from Elise, the paintbrush, book, pen, lighter, seashell, on the altar, a quiet offering to the past. Riley felt lighter as she set the seashell down, a symbol of letting go. They exchanged numbers, promising to stay in touch. Not as rivals, but as survivors of the same storm. As Riley drove away, the vineyard fading in the rearview mirror, she felt a spark of hope. Elise had brought them together for her own reasons, but they'd found something more, a chance to rebuild together. Weeks passed, and San Francisco hummed with its usual rhythm, but Riley felt different. The seashell was gone, left behind at the vineyard, but its absence was a reminder of the closure she'd found. She sat in her apartment, sketching designs for a new project, her mind drifting to the others. They'd formed a group chat, a lifeline that buzzed with updates, memes, and tentative plans to meet. Maya was the first to reach out, inviting them to her art gallery opening in Oakland. Riley arrived early, nervous but curious. The gallery was vibrant, filled with Maya's bold paintings, canvases that screamed of freedom and pain. Maya greeted her with a hug, her blue hair now streaked with purple. "Didn't think you'd come," she said, grinning. Lena arrived next, her quiet presence grounding. She carried a new book, a gift for Maya, and her smile was brighter than Riley remembered. Tessa, still polished in a blazer, seemed softer, laughing easily with Maya over a shared memory of Elisa's terrible cooking. Sam was late, her leather jacket swapped for a flannel shirt, but her smirk was the same. "Didn't want to miss the party," she said, winking. The night was a blur of wine, laughter, and stories not just about Elise, but about their lives now. Riley shared her new design gig, a step toward her dream of opening her own studio. Lena talked about a poetry workshop she'd joined, finding her voice. Tessa admitted she was taking a sabbatical to travel, something Elise had once dared her to do. Sam was training to be a mixologist, her tattoos peeking out as she described her latest cocktail. Maya's art was her therapy, each stroke a release of the past. As the gallery emptied, they lingered, reluctant to part. "We're not just Elise's exes anymore," Lena said softly, and the others nodded. They were friends, maybe even family, bound by a journey that had started with heartbreak but led to something stronger. Riley walked home under the city lights, her heart full. She thought of Elise, now in Portland, starting her new life. A text from Elise had come that morning, brief but sincere. "I'm proud of you all." "Thank you." Riley didn't reply, but she smiled. Elise had set them on this path, but they were walking it themselves. The group met again, this time at a cozy cafe in the Mission District. They talked about their dreams, their fears, their hopes. Riley felt a spark with Maya, their banter easy and warm, but she wasn't ready to name it. For now, it was enough to have this circle, this unexpected gift from a wedding that never was. Spring bloomed in San Francisco, and Riley's life felt like it was blooming too. Her design studio was taking shape, a small space filled with sketches and dreams. The group chat with Maya, Lena, Tessa, and Sam was a daily comfort, their messages a mix of support and sarcasm that kept her grounded. They met monthly now, each gathering a chance to grow closer. At a beach bonfire in Santa Cruz, they laughed over shared stories, the pier in the distance no longer a wound but a memory. Maya's hand brushed Riley's as they tossed driftwood into the fire, and Riley felt a warmth she hadn't expected. Lena noticed, her smile knowing, but she said nothing. Tessa had returned from her travels, her stories of hiking in Peru sparking envy and admiration. Sam mixed cocktails for them, her flair for drama now channeled into her craft. Lena read a poem she'd written, her voice steady, and the group applauded, their cheers echoing over the waves. Riley thought of Elise less now, but when she did, it was with gratitude, not pain. Elise's chaos had brought them together, and this unlikely sisterhood was healing them all. One night, Maya invited Riley to her studio, just the two of them. The air was thick with possibility as they painted side by side, their laughter filling the space. "You're different now," Maya said, her brush pausing. "Stronger." Riley smiled, her heart open. "So are you." They didn't kiss, but the moment felt like a promise, a slow step toward something new. The group planned a trip together, a weekend in Big Sur to celebrate their bond. As they hiked the cliffs, the ocean crashing below, Riley felt a peace she hadn't known in years. Elise had been the spark, but they were the fire, burning bright on their own. Big Sur's cliffs stretched endlessly before them, the Pacific roaring below. Riley stood at the edge, her boots dusted with dirt, her heart full. Maya was beside her, sketching the horizon, while Lena, Tessa, and Sam lounged on a blanket, sharing a thermos of coffee. Their laughter carried on the wind, a sound that felt like home. The weekend was a celebration of their journey, from strangers bound by Elise's chaos to friends who'd chosen each other. They hiked, cooked over a campfire, and shared stories under the stars. Lena spoke of her first poetry reading, her voice no longer trembling. Tessa admitted she was rethinking her career, inspired by her travels. Sam's cocktails were a hit, each one named after a moment from their shared past. Riley and Maya grew closer, their connection deepening with every glance, every touch. One night, as the others slept, they sat by the fire, the flames casting shadows on their faces. "I'm scared," Riley admitted, her voice low. "To feel this again." Maya took her hand, her touch steady. "Me too. But we're not Elise. We can do this right." They kissed, soft and tentative, the ocean's roar a backdrop to their quiet courage. It wasn't a promise of forever, but it was a beginning, one Riley was ready to embrace. The others noticed the shift, but said nothing, their smiles enough. As the weekend ended, they stood together on the cliff, the sun setting over the water. They'd come so far from that abandoned vineyard, from the pain of Elise's absence. Now, they were whole, not because of Elise, but because of each other. A year after the wedding that never was, Riley stood in her studio, her designs lining the walls. Maya was there, her latest painting a vibrant backdrop for their shared laughter. Lena, Tessa, and Sam were due any minute, their monthly meetup now a tradition. The group chat buzzed with plans for a summer road trip, a new chapter for their unlikely family. Riley thought of Elise, now thriving in Portland, her updates rare but hopeful. The pain of their past had faded, replaced by gratitude for the journey it sparked. Riley and Maya were together now, their love a slow, steady flame, built on trust and honesty. As the others arrived, the studio filled with warmth. Lena read a new poem, Tessa shared photos from her latest adventure, and Sam mixed drinks, her grin infectious. They toasted to their bond, to the strength they'd found in each other, to the wedding that never happened but changed everything. Riley looked around, her heart full. Elise had invited them to a wedding, but they'd found something better, a sisterhood, a love, a life. The bride never showed up, but they did, for themselves and for each other, and that was enough.